You said you're a texture guy. I watched your last video. You said you're a texture guy.
So bad.
That's what will get you. It's like, it's not bad. It's just.
Welcome to our next edition of Food for Thought. It's the show where we get to hear some thoughts while we get to eat some food. I'm with a good friend, former classmate, I think team sports. I couldn't remember if we survived Miss Murray's class together or not.
We did.
But this is Mike Cooper, pastor of middle schoolers at Salem. Mike, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm excited. I love eating food.
I love eating food.
I love talking about Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, we get paid to do this. How does that happen? But I'm excited. Mike has been putting together some really unique content on discipleship that I've been tuning into and even learning from. And so I wanted you to hear a little bit of his story, and then also let's just talk through just a little bit of what it looks like to follow Jesus right now. And particularly, you hear the word discipleship a lot in church, but what in the world does that mean? And how do you do it well?
Yeah, you have to define discipleship or else you run around kind of blind.
Yeah, we do not want to be chickens with our heads cut off.
Yeah.
But I like eating chicken with our heads cut off. And so that is my terrible segue to the fact that we're eating Bojangles today. Now, if you're a student who knows me, you know that I love Bojangles. And my wife challenged me to not just get the things that I love, that I've already eaten a couple times this week, but instead to try 4 things that I have never had from Bojangles. And so Mike has been willing and able to join me, and we're going to maybe suffer through, maybe find a new thing that we get. But we're trying 4 new items that I have never had. How do you feel about that, Mike?
I feel good. Bojangles is great. It's an Apex legacy, right?
It's true. It's true. I was trying to think about how often I've eaten at the Highway 64 Bojangles, and I'd be willing to bet it's over 500 times.
So if you go back to like high school, we both went to Apex High.
Yeah.
Pretty much every single day for lunch, I went to Bojangles.
Yes.
Not a proud fact, but
it just kind of happened, right?
Yeah,
happened.
that's what you do when you go to Apex.
All right, so we've got 4 things. Mike, I'm going to let you pick this one. Where would you like to start?
Can we just get the coleslaw over with?
Yes. All right, so we talked about this. Me and Mike, born and bred in the South, we are not coleslaw fans. I've never had the coleslaw. I've had no desire to have the coleslaw. But here we go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I don't even want this on my utensils. I feel like it's going to stain them.
Nah, you'll be fine.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. I need a countdown or I'm not going to do it.
All right. 3, 2, 1. You said you're a texture guy. I watched your last video. You said you're a texture guy.
So bad.
That's what will get you. It's like, it's not bad. It's just, why get it?
I can't chew it up.
I don't know. I could eat more. It's just the smell of it. That's what gets me.
Well, you had the creaminess is really liquidy, but then you have is it cabbage? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's cabbage. Cabbage and mayonnaise,
all right.
I think.
Well, that's going to be a one and done for me.
Sure.
Let's move on to something better than that. Let's go with our first question. Oh, I'm glad I didn't have to suffer through that long.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. It wasn't terrible, man.
I know. I'm just a big wimp. All right, question number 1. Since some of our folks tuning in might not know you, I've grown up with you, so I know you a little bit. Can you just share, just briefly, how Jesus has changed your life, and then maybe one thing that he's been teaching you during this crazy summer of 2020?
Yeah. So I grew up going to an Episcopal church until I was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school, and I realized once I heard the gospel as a freshman. Somehow I never heard the gospel. And that church I was at, I watched things like Breakfast Club and Sunday School, which is really sad. And so that's how I grew up. My parents were believers, but I never really had the gospel taught to me. And when I finally heard it, I was just confronted with sin. And it was wow, I need Jesus. And I put my faith in him when I was a sophomore, or maybe a freshman, going into sophomore year, but then I started going to Salem Baptist, which I've been there now for 10 years. Now I'm working there. I'm on staff. Praise the Lord for what he's done. But that's where I started growing as a believer and started learning what it means to love Jesus. But I struggled with sin. I was like I was a believer, but I was still like addicted to various things. And man, he has brought me out of that. He's given me freedom and hope and purpose. And so, yeah, that's what I love being able to share that with students now. And they like, man, if you're struggling with sin, and even if you're a believer, you can still struggle with sin, but he can bring you out of that. He can make you a new creation. And it's by his grace that I don't struggle with those things, and I've been set free.
Awesome.
For the summer, man, I mean, even going all the way back to April, it's, I would say two things that I've learned. One is, you worry so much. I mean, just this generation that we get to teach and talk to, they worry and they're anxious about all sorts of things, and I'm there with you. I've learned that it wastes my time and doesn't actually help the people I'm worried about if I worry. And so I've learned to just, if I start to worry, I pray. I just take it to the Lord, and he gives you a peace about it. He calms you. And that I think has been the biggest thing. Lots of changes at our church and lots of seeing friends struggle. And rather than sitting and just freaking out, I've drawn to the Lord. I've gone to him. The second thing is the need for rhythm. And
I've learned something about that too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, our normal rhythm was taken away.
Yeah.
And so for the first couple weeks, a month, I was struggling to still keep reading the Bible and stay consistent in that. And it was as I found a new rhythm, and for me it's I wake up, I get some coffee, and I start to actually wake up. I'll just go outside, and when you're at your house, there's everything around you will distract you, because you have in my house, I have a place where I play games, I have a place where I eat dinner, I have a place where I watch TV, and so that was in the back of my mind as I try to sit there and read the Bible.
Yeah.
So I go outside, and now when I'm outside, I read the Bible.
That's cool.
It's helped me begin to be more consistent, and I'm actually more consistent in the Bible now.
Awesome. Mike, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And let's chew on it a little while we chew on something else. I would like to pick the pimento cheese biscuit next.
Let's do this.
Now, you said pimento cheese, that's something that you enjoy, eat some of?
Put it on a hot dog, and it's the best way to eat a hot dog.
Now, I'm a plain Jane kind of hot dog guy, so we'll see how this goes. I've had this recommended to me several times at the beach whenever we go with Amy's family. They just make a ton of pimento cheese and they put it on everything. So I'm a little skeptical, but I think you've talked me into this.
Yeah, I've always been skeptical of this in particular. I like pimento cheese, but when I think about Bojangles making pimento cheese, it makes me nervous.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm sure it's still great though.
All right, let's give it a shot. Oh, it's got a little kick to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's go.
I can get behind it. I have some thoughts, but I have a mouthful of cheese, so give me 1 second. Okay. Thoughts, that is a biscuit to cheese ratio. That is a lot of cheese. It's good cheese. It's got just the right amount of kick. I'd be interested what spices were in it. You can tell I've been watching some Food Network over the last few days. I would give that...
You can see the peppers in it. You look.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was seeing. Looking at that photo, and they're it's just all sorts of peppers. And I'm there's more pepper than there is cheese, but it's good.
I would rate it out of 10. I'm giving that I'm giving it a 7, which is higher than I thought I would rate it.
I'm just eating the whole thing.
Go for it. Go for it.
That's really good.
I'm going to take another little bite.
I'll give it an 8.
Okay, we got an 8 from him. So we didn't rate the coleslaw. I'm going to go 2.5.
Let's go right there in 5. I mean, I think just the fact that I had to smell it for so long, that's the thing that gets me.
It lingered. It was just wafting.
Made me not want it as much.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay, well, I've knocked out 2 of those. Next question. So, again, I told you something that I really wanted to ask you about was discipleship, because I can tell the Lord's really been leaning on you, one, how to do that well, but then particularly what that means for students. So, what would you say are some differences that we can pay attention to when it comes to okay, like I accepted Jesus when I went to Awana, and I've got my like get out of hell free card, and I'm a Christian, but it was more of just like a one-time thing versus like daily following Jesus. Like, what are some big differences you see between the two of those?
I was talking to my wife about it, and obedience is one thing. Like, so the question you sent me specifically said, like, okay, I'm just asking for forgiveness, and I'm actively trying to grow as a disciple.
Yeah.
And that like cycle of I sin, I ask for forgiveness, I sin, I ask for forgiveness, that shows you a lot about like where your desire is. Like you love your sin probably more than you love Jesus. And that will like slap you in the face.
Yeah.
But once you learn that, man, Jesus is so much better. Like when you read, like you start reading scripture and you see, man, this is the beauty of Jesus, and it'll start changing, and your desire starts to shift. And I think that is probably the biggest key. Is like I love Jesus more than I love my sin, and it's hard to get there, honestly. But one thing, Justin, he was my youth pastor. Now he's my mentor. He's my boss. He talks a lot about your identity as a saint and not as a sinner saved by grace. You're a saint who has been made new, and when you think of yourself in that regard, it kind of brings you above that sin.
Yeah.
And so, like when you think of yourself as a sinner, what does a sinner do? They sin.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh well, I sinned, and that's just what sinners do. But there's Jesus, and He's going to forgive me, so that's good. But then you stop, you twist that a little bit, and you say, no, I'm a saint. Look at it like all of Paul's letters. He starts with to the saints. All believers who have been changed by faith, they're saints. And so like I have to change my tattoo so it says sinner saved by grace. Well, no, it's a saint. You stop wanting to sin because it's just an excuse.
Yeah, man, that's good, and that's something that does break the cycle. Because I mean, you talked a little about your story. Like that was my story as a middle and high school student. Like, yes, I had accepted Jesus, but it was like accept Jesus and then just, all right, like I'm a slave to this sin. Ask for forgiveness, slave to this sin, and when we break that with choosing to be obedient, even when we're not there all the way yet, that's something that can help us kind of grow out of that. So yeah, I appreciate that because it really is that cycle.
And it's like, if you think I'm a slave to the sin, you've missed the reality that Jesus has set you free from your sin.
Yeah.
Like it's for freedom you've been set free, so stop sinning. That's what Paul tells us in Galatians 5. So
yeah, man, that's good. That's a good word. Cool. Let's hit. Now you were telling me you wanted to try the mac and cheese.
Yeah.
So
I've never had it.
I've never had it either. When we get the super tailgate, the supreme tailgate, it's fries, mashed potatoes, and the dirty rice. So I've never had the mac and cheese either. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
We were not a fan of our mac and cheese last week.
I saw it was dry, and that was blamed on you.
Yes, it was.
So this could be an issue again.
I did pick it up pre-lunchtime, so last time. This was like right before.
It's mac and cheese.
Yeah. No frills. This is like what you see is what you get.
Yeah. It's good.
And I like what I see, and I like what I've gotten.
They're like the bigger noodles. Like I feel like this is just Kraft mac and cheese with bigger noodles and more cheese.
Yeah. Now, were you an Easy Mac guy in college, like the poured in for? Okay. I consumed more than my fair share of those.
I was a ramen dude.
A ramen. What flavor?
Chicken or beef, either one of those.
Yeah.
Or the Oriental flavor. Actually, that's the one.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've had homemade ramen one time, and it changed my world. I don't think my taste buds have ever been the same. Mac and cheese, I would give this. This is just like, you don't want your mac and cheese to surprise you. At least I don't. I'm a simple man. I'm giving this a 7 because it's exactly what I wanted. No, nothing more, nothing less.
If I'm putting this on like a mac and cheese scale, it's not the best mac and cheese I've ever had, but it's like, I feel like Kraft mac and cheese, that's like the standard.
Yes.
This is above that.
Okay.
I'll give it a 7 as well. Maybe
Cool.
a 6. I mean, it's mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could keep eating this, except for the stuff that's touched my coleslaw. Coleslaw. I get in trouble for
I
saying
finished
that.
it.
Boom, you killed that. All right, next question. So this is something, if we're called to grow as a disciple, obviously there are some principles and principalities that do not want that to occur. So what would you say to a student if they asked you this question? Like, what are some potholes that exist for growing disciples, and how can we watch out for those and protect against them?
Yeah, we had a leader meeting with our student leaders at Salem, and we were just talking about that because we're having PBA, which is it's BBS for high school and middle school, and we're talking about the race that Jesus has set for us. And so obviously in that there's going to be obstacles. I think the biggest one you see, and especially with students, is anger, forgiveness, and bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things, they get in the way of worship. They will just eat away at your heart, and that's cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, someone makes you angry, they're gone.
Bye.
Yeah, don't need you in my life.
Yeah.
You're no room for you. Jesus tells us in the Sermon on the Mount that if you have an issue with a brother or sister, make it up with them before you go to the temple and before you go to worship.
Yeah.
And you see it with students all the time. Like, they say something mean about you, and you're just like, nah, I'm done with you, and you never give them the light of day. And it takes your joy and kills it. And it's heartbreaking to watch. When Paul tells us in Romans if so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all.
Yeah. And something to strive after, but so often it's, this is going to be a little too much work for me. This is going to put me out of my comfort zone. This is not something. And it's literally, he's saying, no, strive for this.
Yeah.
The world will know my love for you if you do this well.
Yeah.
And so often it's the first thing we throw out when we feel slighted or things like that.
Yeah, just read the 1 John. The whole thing is if you don't love your brother and you say you love God, you're a liar.
Yeah.
And it's oh, I don't like hearing that, and so we just don't read things like that. When
we're I've got righteous anger right now. This doesn't apply. If I want to shun them, I can. And he's no, love like I love.
Yeah, and likewise, pride. It really you have one pride is usually why we won't forgive someone. But also in student ministry, if you grew up in the church, by the time you're in high school, you're I know this stuff.
Yeah.
Or how many times have you heard I've outgrown the youth group? You don't outgrow Christianity. You don't outgrow Jesus because he's eternal, and for all of eternity we get to learn about who he is.
Yeah.
Humble yourself and realize maybe I've heard this passage preached, but still the Spirit is alive, the Word is alive, and he's got something to teach me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's some things that disciples do that we don't always talk about in discipleship. Really nitty-gritty, what we do with the people around us. That stuff matters.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let's move to the dessert round. Normally my dessert from Bojangles is more Bojangles. Occasionally it is a Bowberry biscuit. I actually had gone through a pretty long Bowberry hiatus, but we are rocking the sweet potato pie today. Another thing that I've had recommended to me, and because I've been at Bojangles so much, I just stick to my guns. So let's give the sweet potato pie a shot. Now they only have one left, so we cut it in half. Let's see what we got here.
I don't know how you cut it in half.
Very carefully. Now this is the texture of this is a little interesting too.
I just got a huge bite, so this is going to be kind
Oh,
of
man.
embarrassing.
The crust is really good. I'm getting some more of that. If I can keep it on my fork.
Might have just been the bite I had, but I feel like I only got breading. That might be my fault.
You got a nice pie crust.
Yeah.
Now this is something, I would do that even not in Thanksgiving. I would do that again. Absolutely.
Kind of whatever, man.
Nothing to write home about.
Yeah. Give me the Bowberry biscuit.
Mike Cooper has spoken. He said, I have no time for these desserts. Give me the thing Bojangles is known for.
Yeah.
Okay, let's rank it. I'm giving that, I've gone 7 a lot today, but I'm going to go 7 with that again. I think crust was really good. The filling Wasn't too much, not enough. I'm going 7.
I'm going all the way down to 4.
Ooh.
It was just like whatever. Like I probably wouldn't get it again. I don't know. It's like the breading and the crust is really good, but I feel like that's all I was eating, and so I need like to just keep drinking the sweet tea
to get it down the throat.
Yeah.
Especially since you're about to answer another question again.
That's true.
That happened with my green beans the other time. I could not. So there was one just stuck in the throat for a while. All right. Last question. I'm sorry my dessert did not.
It was so good. It just
Yeah. Just it was fine.
Yeah.
It was just fine. Okay. Last question. So as we head into the fall, what should our students focus on, both doing and learning, in order to be modern day disciples, both in school, but as we know, fall could look like school being at home. It could look like doing it virtually somewhere. So what should our students focus on? The ones that have said, okay, like I get it, I should be a disciple, Great Commission. I understand, Tyler, but like, what do I do, and what should I be learning? What would you tell them to focus on?
Again, this is a conversation I have a lot. But if we focus on what we should be doing, we usually get really tired of doing it pretty quickly. And so I think first and foremost, and you kind of said like under the assumption that a student is already doing this, but focus on who Jesus is. Like see who he is and what he desires of you, and out of an overflow of love for him, you should then start doing the things he asks of you.
Okay.
So I would just start with Jesus. But like if you got that down, I would say find someone like who is older than you, or you respect and you see their faith and you say, man, I want to be like them, and tell them that and ask them to invest in you. Like that's really where you find discipleship, is that one-on-one. And it's really intimidating to go find someone to disciple. It's also intimidating to find someone to disciple you and to sit down and invest their life. But like it's really as simple as like, man, I respect this person's faith. I want to be like them. And so you go ask them, and you realize that like they're probably going to let you down. They're not perfect, and they might make you angry with some of the questions they ask you, or maybe they have no idea what they're doing either. But you grow together, and that little bit of accountability is like having someone who each week will tell you, man, I talked about this in Scripture. It'll make you want to read Scripture more because you didn't get to talk about it.
Yeah, that's good. It's funny too that oftentimes we see those people. Like I can name some people right off the top of my head that I want my relationship with Jesus to look like that. But how often do I not take the step and say, hey, like, how did you get there?
Yeah.
Or like, what have you done? And they're gonna want to share that. But a lot of times it's like back to pride, or back to like I can't show that I don't know what I'm doing, and it gets in the way of God really using that person in your life. So I think that's a great easy step that regardless of whether COVID is here or not, we can do.
Yeah.
Because of how like the timing that God has given us here, to where we can do some stuff over Zoom, we can meet over coffee, we can like what an opportunity to grow in this season with our routines all crazy. So those are great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, the obvious answer too is like read the Bible and pray, but like, we've all heard that, and we probably struggle to do that. So what can help us then to get to the point where we are actually doing it? I think that accountability and having people talk about it, and you see like how it's changing you.
Yeah, let's do it together.
Yeah.
We don't have to do this on our own. So,
Yep.
And I'm glad I did not have to do the task of eating this cold slaw on my own, because I would not have done it. Well, Mike, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
We're so thankful that we get to share the mission of trying to reach Apex and the surrounding area for the gospel with a like-minded church who is killing it in their own right. And so we're thankful for you, for Josh, for Justin, and for all those folks over there. And Wesley, I got to take a class with him, and I know that y'all are busy with Vacation Bible School stuff, VBA for you.
Yeah.
So we'll be lifting you up, and hopefully this is not the last time we can eat Bojangles together, because I'd much rather eat my 4-piece Supreme combo.
Yeah, that's the go-to.
You got is that
That's
yours?
my go-to. But I'll split that biscuit in half and put the tenders inside of it and make a little sandwich.
We should have done that. Oh well. Now we know. Next time, just ask Mike. But man, thanks for being on here. Thank you for sharing some thoughts while we ate some food. Let's continue on this mission together.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for joining us.